On today's Rebels Edge, Nvidia reports earnings after the bell yesterday, beats top and bottom, but leaves some investors unimpressed. President Trump, Manhattan Project 2.0 delivers big time for the quantum industry on news this morning that $2 billion would be invested from the U.S. government, sending that sector soaring. We had unusual activity in those names for a while now. And finally, is Aaron Rodgers headed to Boca? Rumors are swirling that this season may be his last. Jets fans are saying, good riddance, have fun in retirement. We'll cover all that and more on today's Rebels Edge.
Believe it or not, folks, that is not Pete Najarian. I know it looks just like him. People think Pete and I are twins, and now they'll think Mark Lepresti and Pete and I are triplets, apparently.
Yeah. I have too much hair, though, John. I'm not, I'm not losing hair quickly enough to join that club yet. But listen, it's an exclusive and rarefied one. Can barely get out of a restaurant with you guys without getting absolutely bombarded with all of your fanboys and girls. So,
well, you know
I
what
don't
they
mind.
say, Mark. God only made so many perfect heads, and the rest he covered with hair.
Yes, this is absolutely true. Good to be with you.
Well, great to have you here, Mark. As Mark said, top of the show, folks, the earnings out of Nvidia did not impress in America, but they were very impressive overseas, Mark, because when I looked up the Nikkei 225, which was up 3% overnight, it was optimism over the strong earnings out of Nvidia and a little bit of easing of crude oil prices, but that was before the present supreme leader in Iran decided to say, even if we go for some sort of peace deal, we're not giving up the uranium. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yeah. Good luck with that one, sir. You will be joining your father very soon. But nonetheless, Mark, that was the way I viewed the macro picture today. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the question is, and we've got lots of naysayers, lots of shorts out there that have been caught flat-footed with Nvidia, the AI chip sector and infrastructure in general, everybody calling for these names to sell off akin to the dot-com bubble. We've maintained month after month, quarter after quarter, that we think that the demand side of the AI infrastructure picture is still underestimated, and that we would expect to see names like Nvidia and AMD and the rest of their progeny continue to beat quarter after quarter. But the problem is to keep impressing Wall Street and to keep impressing these traders with a voracious appetite for forward guidance that is nothing short of mind-blowing, even with beating $80 billion, $1.80 EPS, issuing forward guidance that does indicate that the demand remains very robust. They still somehow wanted to see more. I don't know, John. I think there's a little bit of temporary selling here. I think we end the day in the green, and Nvidia is going higher, is my guess from here.
I happen to be right with you on that, Mark. I don't know if it happens today, but I agree. I think over the next week, I'll be shocked if Nvidia isn't pushing 230 rather than just under 220 where it is right now. All right, let's take a look at the VIX, because the VIX contract, which tracks the S&P 500, a lot of you would be somewhat surprised, perhaps, to see that, well, if Nvidia's down, the VIX must be up. Nope. If oil's up, the VIX must be up. Nope. The VIX is 1726, barely holding on, Mark, to 17, and more likely that it's going to see 16 in the near future. And part of the reason is we've only moved about 0.25% for the S&P 500. So the VIX is doing what it should do, and that is losing some of that extra premium.
Yeah, that is true. 17.25 here is the live quote, and looks like it's going down even lower. If the NASDAQ catches a bid, which I think we could see by midday today, John, you could see the VIX going even lower. We're starting to see the quantum names, by the way, and I know we're going to talk about it, but I'm super anxious to talk about it. because we may have predicted this, both from our research reports and our UOA and what we've been saying at live events for months now. So quantum names, I think, are going to start bringing up the NASDAQ more broadly. If that happens today, which is my expectation, we could see the VIX moving even lower.
Yep. And I would not so much caution, but just point out that when you're the biggest company in the world, over $4 trillion market cap, you move 1% or 2%, it's going to overwhelm everything else in the index, which it has. And still, we're not seeing the give up for the NASDAQ of more than 0.3% right now. And almost all of that attributable to Nvidia's soft reaction. All right, let's take a look at a prediction market play here, Mark, real quick, because we'll cover the Spurs versus OKC in the sports at the bottom. But I thought people would get a kick out of this because Mark's New York Knicks were led by Jalen Brunson, and the number 3 seed up 1 zip heading into game 2. And there you see it on your screen, the prediction market, folks. Cavaliers versus Knicks. And as you can see, the Knicks' likelihood of winning just keeps kind of climbing steadily after they made that fantastic comeback, Mark, that had the Big Apple happy for the first time since Mondami's been in office.
Yeah. Yeah, and we definitely need some things to cheer about here in New York. So it would be great to have the Knicks back. You know, being a sports fan in New York City, John, is not the easiest thing,
No.
to put it very mildly. But very interesting to see how the prediction markets playing this one out. By and large, have they been as accurate in these outcomes of basketball and football as they have been in terms of things like earnings, or do you think there's a divergence?
They have been quite accurate, but for the most part, the accuracy has been, oh, will they beat, not
Right.
will the stock trade up.
Right.
Right now, they've sort of not wanted to be in that box, I think, Mark, because they're judged or they're overseen by the CFTC presently. And I think the further they push over into stocks themselves, oh, do you think Nvidia will trade up after earnings? That's a little bit of a different question than do you think their earnings will beat or not? And we'll keep our eye on that for you, folks. But like Mark said, the prediction markets have been pretty good because it is people putting their money where their mouth is. But the money is like this, folks. Even if it's a few $1 million on Nvidia potentially then beating estimates, which it was, and which they did, that was versus the tens of millions, even hundreds of millions that were cast in the options market alone on stocks like Nvidia or Microsoft or the quantum names, which we're going to get to right after Intuit. So take a look at this one, folks. Intuit shares plunging down more than 20%. Better than expected earnings results. They raised full year outlook. Many of you would say, well, the stock should be trading up, right? Well, and they're going to cut 17% of their workforce, Mark. So all of those things put together, you might say, in a vacuum, the stock should be up. They're cutting the workforce. That's overhead, of course. They're outperforming, but KeyBank and a number of other analysts cut their price target somewhat dramatically, right?
Yeah, I mean, and very dramatically. KeyBank from 520 down to 450. Barclays from 540 to 443. Wells Fargo 425 to 360. These are not mild cuts in what the expected share price is, although they've maintained their, I believe, neutral ratings on the firm. I think the concern here is that there is slowing revenue growth, but John, I don't see that borne out in the numbers here. I think they have a report about over 10% year-over-year revenue growth, just under $9 billion on reduced expenses, as you point out, but that was less than the street was expecting. So it's as we always say, folks, it is no more the rear view mirror report, right? Unless a company substantially beats or substantially misses, it's about that forward guidance. That's how these things trade after earnings are reported. And I am surprised. I don't own it. I don't have options or equities in this one, John, but I am a little bit surprised to see it getting punished pretty severely for what they reported.
Yeah, well, it might be a reasonable shot to take, even though they've cut these targets and they're pushing it down. Might be a reasonable shot at some point here, Mark. But 20% for bookkeeping and tax work and all the other stuff that Intuit has part of their business, I don't see that growing all that dramatically. And the more, as you always tell me about Claude, the more people that are using AI to do everything from bookkeeping to taxes, why would this company not see a slowing in their growth for forward-looking folks like KeyBank and all these other analysts?
Yeah,
All right.
could be a little SaaSpocalypse hangover. Maybe the SaaSpocalypse is not completely over. It's entirely possible. And when you look at the number of workers being laid off every single week, all of the news about Meta telling people, hey, maybe you ought to work from home this week because if you come in, you may not leave with a job still. That is all AI, folks. AI is taking human jobs at a greater rate than anybody has been expecting, which is why I keep saying it is remarkable how stable the labor market has been, how strong the economy has been, notwithstanding 20 to 30,000 jobs every week, by my estimates, getting sucked out of the labor market as a result of AI. And yet we still have the kind of economic environment that we do. John, let's talk about GFS Global Foundries. This is
Yeah,
a
I
bit
knew
of the
you'd be
quantum
on
story.
this one. Yeah, because this is the best tech trader in the world, folks, and it ain't Bill Ackman, and it isn't Warren Buffett, and it isn't Blackstone, BlackRock, or any of those guys. It's Donald Trump. I mean, when the Trumpster gets his focus on a sector, Mark, it tends to lift that sector, and he's throwing money at, look at Intel. It's up sixfold from when he made that investment. And now he's pushing the Commerce Department to push money, $2 billion, into the quantum names like GFS, Global Foundries. But the real quantum names like QBTS, these are the ones that you were citing just Monday at the mastermind in Miami that we did with Grant Cardone. So maybe tell the viewers and listeners what you were telling Grant Cardone's high-end investors at WealthCon.
Yeah, and look, loyal Rebels Edge watchers and members of the Market Rebellion community know we've been hot on quantum for a while now. We issued our long-awaited, much-anticipated quantum research report on the 20th of April that featured all of these companies, QBTS, QUBT, RGTI, ARQQ, the D-Wave, Rigetti, QNC, which is Quantum Emotion, which we are on the board, the advisory board of. All of these names were up even before this morning's announcement. And we did, by the way, John, predict on page 25 and 26 of that quantum report, and maybe producer John, we can drop a link in here for people to download it if they don't already have it. We said that as part of President Trump's Manhattan Project 2.0, that we would expect to see investment, private sector investment from the government, DOW, other agencies in these quantum names. We saw it coming. We talked about it. And if you were one of the investors that got that report back in April and picked up some of these names, especially if you played it with the options, because we've had unusual activity in a lot of these names in that period of time, man, you are really, really happy, as we're, John, I've already heard this morning from some of the folks that were at 10X Wealth on Saturday and at the mastermind on Monday, where I was able to get into more of the detail on this. Folks are up, 30, 34, 35% on the equities. And I haven't even asked about the ones that were smart enough to watch the UOA and play the option side of things, but always proud when we can see those trends. We issued, by the way, folks, just yesterday, it's all coming out today. And if you're watching this, you'll probably get a copy because you're probably on our mailing list. Our space report, which was, I think, also pretty well timed with the release of the SpaceX prospectus. You do not want to miss that one. And Global Foundries, of course, the ticker that we're talking about here, talking about how the Commerce Department, $375 million, maybe even a little more, to accelerate the build out of their quantum business. This is really, really good news for this company. Total of 7 names that are getting funding on this news this morning from the Commerce Department, including D-Wave, Rigetti, and INFQ, which I'm not as familiar with, but very exciting. And just like with space, rising tide lifting all boats, we're seeing all the quantum names, QNC included, catching a bid. In some instances, a really big bid this morning. Congratulations to everybody that got in on that sector. There's still more room for this to run.
Yeah, and today, Mark, today, the 21st of May, we saw the May 30 calls being bought in big numbers that expire tomorrow. This is a $24 stock, and they're betting that, on the 30s. They're betting for next week's expiration, the 25 calls in May on the 29th expiration, and June 18th expiration. They're betting on the 26 calls. So a lot of bets stacked up in QBTS. We'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep you guys updated on it next week. Because remember, this is the last Rebels Edge of the week. We don't do the show on Fridays normally, and Monday is a holiday. So we'll have to catch you up on the rest of that next week. All right, Mark. Ralph Lauren. So truly a discretionary spend. You don't have to have, other than Mark Lopresti, nobody has to have Ralph Lauren or Armani. But Mark Lopresti does.
No, I don't. No, I don't. I did throw on a polo in honor of their earnings report though today, John. So I do have a pony on today.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure the viewers do.
Yeah.
It was up 10%, double-digit gain for the apparel maker. Stronger than expected fourth quarter earnings. Revenue up 16.5% year over year to nearly $2 billion in constant currency. I mean, this was a great report for RL, Mark, and it's a sign that even though Walmart traded down fairly heavy today, we're seeing some of these consumer discretionary names do better rather than do worse.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not insignificant. We're talking about double-digit growth, same-store double-digit growth, quarter over quarter. It really is pretty remarkable, and it does, to me, I think, indicate a broader, as we've been saying, a lot of strength in the underlying economy, a lot of strength in terms of the and the confidence of the American consumer, albeit this is a higher-end consumer, a higher-earning consumer, a consumer that perhaps is in the stock market and feeling pretty good about how feeling like this, they got a little bit of jingle in their pocket, or maybe things to fold in their pocket. So yeah, very happy to see this out of Ralph Lauren. Any continued positive reporting, John, from any of the consumer brands, discretionary or more importantly the non-discretionary, the stuff that people have to buy, makes me happy. That's why I was so happy to see what Home Depot reported at the beginning of the week.
Well, let's wind it up, Mark, with Applied Digital, APLD. And I don't think it's a big reach to say that companies like HUT, HUT, HUT 8, or Z Squared, which we are, shareholders, we're paid advisors to that company, full disclosure. The companies that really focus in here, Mark, on data center build outs and so forth, many of them for artificial intelligence, of course, have pivoted from perhaps mining operations like HUT 8 and like Z Squared. They've pivoted, so has Applied Digital, over into the high performance hosting business. And this one up 20% today. It's nearly double on the year, Mark. And they announced a 15-year take or play lease tied to their Polaris Forge AI campus. This is a big deal. And more people are doing what Michelle Burke over at Z Squared talked about, Mark, when you and I were with her when she rang the bell, the closing bell at the NASDAQ less than 2 weeks ago, folks. And she was talking about, look, permitting is a big deal. Having power, having enough megawatts so that you can run these data centers is a big deal. You know who has that? Former miners, like HUT 8, like Z Squared, like APLD. And that's why you're seeing these big moves when they actually announce deals like the kind that APLD announced today, Mark.
Yeah, you gotta love a decade and a half take or pay. I mean, that's basically guaranteed revenue. The only thing that investors are looking at is what's the credit quality, right, of the counterparty. And I think in this case, it's pretty darn good. And a lot of these companies, it has not been like in the case of Z Squared, not a full pivot. They're not abandoning the crypto mining side of things. And what's interesting about that model is it enables the power to go to the highest and best and most productive use at the right time. And you're absolutely right, John. 3 to 5 years, really closer to 5 is what I'm hearing on average if you're a shovel-ready site for a data center. To take into account things like the permitting and the power, depends on if you're in front of the grid, behind the grid, et cetera. So really great to see. And obviously, companies like Hut, my God, it's back over 100 today, up almost 6% last time I looked, on the strength, I think, of all of sort of this AI infrastructure maintaining the positive outlook, notwithstanding the little Nvidia sell-off. So really, really great to see, and really happy to see APLD announcing those results in that 15-year, man, whoever negotiated that one, tough negotiator, 15-year take or pay. Congratulations. And congratulations to everybody that held that stock. Got a little Pete's
Yep.
Red Zone Sports, even though Pete's not here today.
That's right. And when Pete was last here, we had talked extensively about OKC, Oklahoma City. And OKC had a terrible situation, Mark, in their game one, where their big player, and I know these are all a jumble of letters, folks, but OKC's top player, SGA, he shot 7 of 28 or 26, something like that, in the first game. If your top player, I don't know Jordan ever did in the playoffs, but if your top player shoots that poorly, it's hard to imagine somebody else picking up the slack, because those are a lot of shots that fell, got rebounded by the other team, some of them, and baskets scored against you. They lost in double overtime. But this one, Mark, complete turnaround from game one, because in game two, that big kid, and he is a kid, he's a very young man, very talented guy. Wemby is his nickname, but he's 7'5", and he scored 41 in. Well, in this one, they held him to, I think, 20 or 21, Mark, and they did it by putting a big body on him. And that was something that they needed to do to stop him from being the scoring machine that he can be. And they did it. And thus, because of that, they were able to not eke out a victory, but basically beat them every single quarter except one. And the final score tells the story, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this kid's a freaking machine. Have the fans figured out how to pronounce his last name? Because I'm not even going to take a crack at it.
Wembenyama, something
Sure.
like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
They make great tires as well.
Nobody can, you would expect to see that on a Formula One car. And maybe would. Mark and I will be coming to you from Monaco with some of that in a couple weeks. But anyway, that's
a rumor still. That's just a rumor.
That's still a rumor. The OKC center, by the way, just to give him a little shout, Isaiah Hartenstein was absolutely a force in this one, because he's a big man. He's the center for OKC, and he did the job, which they didn't have done in the first game. So now it's even 1-1, Mark. All right. Now, I know you wanted to talk about your former Jets quarterback, so I'll let you tell us exactly what's going on with one Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers.
Listen, there was a lot of hoopla. Loyal Rebel Edge watchers will recall when he came over to the Jets. I had the privilege of being invited to the training day, which just before the season opener, and literally almost every single player took the time to come over and meet with the VIPs and sign game balls and take pictures with the kids and this and anything, except for this guy. He was too busy planning his next ayahuasca trip or just finding himself or whatever. He wasn't even mixing it up or talking much or mentoring with the younger players. I was super unimpressed. Of course, he failed to deliver, failed to launch, if you will, for the Jets. So I got to be honest with you, dude. When I heard this morning that Aaron Rodgers may be retiring and joining the rest of us in South Florida, I wasn't too sad to hear it or to see him go. I don't know if Steelers fans will agree, but I really never liked the guy very much. I got to be honest with you. Overrated. Overrated.
Well, in his prime, I think he's a 4-time MVP. In his prime, Aaron was one of the best.
Sure.
And I still love his take on the game. But if I'm a Steelers fan or a Jets fan, I'm not feeling the commitment that he needs to bring. And thus, as a 42-year-old player, he announced that this is his final year, his final year. So that means that he needs to get out there and win. And that means that the Steelers need to start lining up who's going to be the next quarterback for them, since they're going to be relying on Aaron Rodgers this year. They need to see, okay, are any of these three guys we've got able to take that mantle on, or do we have to draft somebody else? And they haven't had much success drafting quarterbacks that could take over for Roethlisberger. So now they got to get one that's going to take over for Aaron Rodgers in 27. But he'll play this year. At least that's what's on the table right now, Mark.
There you go. Hey, John, I just got word from our good friend Liz Clayman that I'm going to be joining her today at 3:55 as the countdown closer on Fox Business. You don't want to miss that. As John pointed out, we will not have a Rebels Edge tomorrow because it's Friday. And Friday of Memorial Day weekend, I think we should expect some pretty low trading volume tomorrow, John, if my experience tells me anything. We'll return on Tuesday. Well, I will have the pleasure of joining John again as the Ed McMahon to his Johnny Carson on the Rebels Edge. Pete's traveling on Tuesday, and look forward to seeing you all then. Have a restful, safe, and happy Memorial Day weekend.
Everybody enjoy and tune in to Fox Business, that 3 to 4 hour with the great Liz Clayman, and Mark probably offering some insights into some of those quantum names again.
Oh, yeah.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bang.